Hi there, my name is Ben Keat, and I'm just making this video to talk firstly about the current situation with Russia, which is looking like escalating into a world war. My views on who's trust in the world um, regarding the situation, and finally, solutions that SAFCOMMS Limited are in a position now, and that has been proven beyond a shadow of a doubt, that we can offer as solutions in order to facilitate the process of winning and a war against Russia and protecting us against the dangers of a nuclear strike. So, yeah, let's run through that in the order they came. So let's start with the first issue, the reasons for the situation in the world where Russia, there's a standoff with Russia and the situation we've got into. Now, I'm not going to start lecturing people or pointing the finger at certain presidents or previous prime ministers or anyone else who has been involved in causing the background to this Ukraine crisis. I think we all know who they are. I think we all know about the corruption and the issues concerning certain presidents and certain ex-presidents' involvement with these individuals at the moment, about why the situation in Ukraine has happened. Fine, okay. We put ourselves in a situation where we have seen fit to protect ourselves against the dangers of Vladimir Putin. Bottom line, we were right to have done that. We were right to have put NATO on his borders, and we were right to have challenged his authority, basically as a draconian leader of a country that potentially could offer a lot in the furtherance of our endeavours towards becoming a species that can get to the space age quickly, and a species that has the aptitude to bring peace all over the earth. I have nothing against the Russian people, but I think we understand that Vladimir Putin, irrespective of what the background and the cause for the upscaling of the antagony against Putin, irrespective of what that is and how that happened and whose involvement has caused that to happen, I think we are all clear on the fact that we were right to put NATO on the borders of Putin and right to poke this so-called Russian bear, as he calls himself. But be under no illusion, he is not the Russian bear at all. He is a despot who has put himself in the power of the Russian people to enact something far worse upon the earth than the communist ideology under Brezhnev, Gorbachev, who's great, Gorbachev, but Brezhnev and certainly Stalin and Lenin to a certain extent. That does not redeem their disgusting crimes against the Jewish people and everything else that they have committed. Let that not be forgotten. No, Putin has put himself in a position. He's masked himself as one of the so-called elites of the Western world. As he came through the KGB, he was a senior member of the Illuminati, and he has used his position, his vile position, probably the most disgusting crimes he was committing while he was in the Illuminati. He wasn't one of the 50% of intelligent people who offer their services to the cause of bringing the Western world up. He was in the 50% of the dragon who despise the West and use the Illuminati as a way of subverting and stopping the future of peace to mankind. So he has had this agenda all along, be under no doubt about that. The man has stood there meekly looking at the world and asking for respect to set up his own version, his own house of the Illuminati. Guy slimly veiling himself under the fact that he is offering the Thrive movement people, the people who are sending some alternative of a peaceful reality with the alliance side of the secret space program and the extraterrestrials so concerned. No, this man has put himself as head of the alliance so-called alliance in his terms. Really, it's the Russian alliance, which is nothing more than a very poor parade of pretty close to useless technology that is pretty fragile and certainly not as robust as us. But let's not get ahead of ourselves straight away and talk about his weaknesses and how we intend to expose and penetrate his weaknesses very, very easily. No, Putin, you know, he didn't have any of us fooled, although a lot of us involved with Russia or with connections from Russia from the past in the West have certainly, hoped for Putin to offer a peaceful outcome. And although we are not fooled that he is a murderer and a despot, bottom line, we were prepared to do business with him, hoping that, failing the fact that we came to a peaceful solution where everything was restored in the orders of the world and we defeated Islamic State and the powers of darkness in the Arab world as well. Let's not forget about that. That is going to be a major part in this war as well. But no, the fact that Vladimir Putin may have actually offered peaceful alternatives to certain people within the Western world who are key noises and seem to be in the ascension movement, that Putin is the charlatan putting himself as their leader. No, this is not the case. It was never Putin's intention to bring peace to the West. Certainly, he has always had a massive camp against the West, and has always been intent on bringing down that side of the world and bringing up his own Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa circle, if you like, of what we call the BRICS Plus movement, a group of countries that are this breakaway alliance. Now, this BRICS movement has fallen apart. Moving on to the next part of this talk, this movement has fallen apart due to financial reasons and financial differences between the various countries, certainly with Brazil and South Africa. It did not seem viable. And then there was the Pakistan-India issue, where India felt more of a pull towards Pakistan, and Pakistan probably didn't quite seem to fit the remit for BRICS at that point. So there's been definitely a pull apart where all we're left with really are the two countries, Russia and China. In our view at SAFCOMMS Limited, we believe that China at the moment are a benign peacekeeping force in the world. We're playing it at face value. I know the threat and the size of their army could mean other things, but let us not forget that China could be a very useful ally in our war against Putin. And the reason I say that is because President Xi was absolutely appalled by the whole behavior of Putin as he marched into Ukraine. And in fact, he had a meeting with Putin and told him to take his army out straight away. Putin has not done this, and Xi is appalled, which proves the fact that Xi's intent, although his issues around Taiwan potentially are threatening, it is not to the same degree of what Putin has done to Ukraine, and certainly not the same relevance at all, because the whole Taiwan argument is quite close to the Chinese hand, if you like, that moves the balance of the Far East. So let us not get too involved in Chinese politics, and let's presume on this occasion, or make the assumption, that China are an ally to what we are going to put in place against Putin. And I say this because their intelligence is second to none. They have extremely strong intelligence program and an extremely, although slightly, how do you put it, jerry-built space program at the moment. They have the potential, which is what we're hoping for in the space agenda community, say, that they will be the first human-led, Earth-built force of occupiers, or a better word would be a service of spacefaring individuals who can get out and start to implement strategies to facilitate the next processes of launching our Earth space programs from NASA, Europe, and EAR ourselves. Well, let's not jump the gun with EAR. I mean, that is still just a whisper, and everything with ENA or EAR is something in the pipeline. And I don't want you to take your eyes off that now, because this is going to be an imperative argument in our war against this Antichrist movement, which is happening in Russia. And I don't think without the concepts of SAFCOMMS and UMOSRIS, ultimately, UMOSRIS will give us the reason to get up and fight, and every able-bodied man in EAR will be involved in the process of putting Putin down. But we wouldn't be able to do it alone. And they are a sizable army, Russia, and Putin has them well trained, irrespective of the jerry-built equipment they have compared to our technology. We don't have as much of it; they have a lot of it, and to them, it's just expendable. It's just another helicopter down. It's not a life. They won't see human life as that. Okay, so even if UMOSRIS hasn't quite melted into your reality yet, and you haven't quite assimilated what we're doing here in Gloucestershire and setting up the future of the West and the civilized world to implement strategies to have a spacefaring program where we can actually implement our own angelic host to survey the universe and potentially start to get integrated in parts of the universe where life may potentially be. Okay, so that is basically, irrespective of what UMOSRIS is, the size and scale and everything else that I've talked about on other videos, irrespective of that, okay, there is a large amount of reason to win this war against Putin and to have the oomph to put him down and put him down for good. Right, so back to the point I was talking about, which is the countries who to trust. I don't think there are going to be many Western countries that would disagree with our views of stopping nuclear collateral damage and stopping Putin in his tracks from invading any more countries from the old Iron Curtain. I think the whole process of putting the next movement forward will be a two-tier project, one of defence, sky defence, and defence of certain zones of the countries where we inhabit, whether this is done at ground level or with certain space programs that will implement like a Star Wars style program that we had back in the 80s and 90s, where nuclear warheads were disarmed instantly as soon as they were launched or as soon as they got out of the atmosphere. This whole process, I'm sure, will continue and is now as more robust than ever. I think it's a sleeping giant. I don't think people have been told much information about what's going on with Star Wars, but I believe there is a big program to implement safe strategies to take out a large amount of damage from what could ensue from a nuclear war from the viewpoint of Russia. However, I think certainly the first alarm bell ringing in my mind is rogue Arab states. I think Iran are masquerading as an enemy of Russia, but I think they are very, very, very much talking from the same viewpoint as Russia. And whether we believe it or not, or whether we have depleted their uranium or not allowed them depleted uranium and stopped them in their tracks from setting up a nuclear program from their existing nuclear energy program. I think the reality is Iran potentially, Russia maybe have stored a lot of nuclear weapons in Iran. I believe that, and I believe that is a key focus of somewhere that is a risky area. But let us not forget the Middle East viewpoints against the UK and America in the first place, since we invaded Iraq and Afghanistan, or Afghanistan and Iraq, around the turn of the millennium, because that was the primary objective for many rogue Arab leaders to get into the nuclear program so that they can get back at what we did to them in the early millennium years and start to implement a war of global proportions with all these rogue Arab states and countries like Iran and other countries in the Middle East. I think this should not be overlooked, and it should not be overlooked that they will be doing deals with Russia. I think the whole facade that Putin was a peacekeeper in Syria is as much a lie as that war turned out to appear to be when it suddenly stopped happening and disappeared like it had never happened in the first place. I think the whole masquerade of Putin trying to have a proxy war against us in those countries just tightens the reality that Assad is still at large. He's still an ally of Putin's, very strong ally of Putin's, and I would not be surprised if there is facilitation between Russia to Syria and to these rogue Arab states. Okay, I think we have an ally in Saudi Arabia, but I think we've got to be careful how we work with them because I don't believe Saudi Arabia are are going to be friends for long when there is a war in the Arab states. I think it will divide the Pashtuns and the different tribes of nomadic or Muslim Wahhabist groups and organizations. Don't forget the Saudi royal family supported the Wahhabist movement a long time ago, and that was the reason why it took us so long to actually start trading and buying oil off the Saudis. Do not forget they are Wahhabists who we at SAFCOMMS and various other areas of interest around where I'm working and operating, the fields I'm working and operating in, believe the Wahhabists are an extremely dangerous fundamental group. Okay, and let's not forget that there's no conclusive proof that Osama bin Laden was not home reared by that existing institution of the Saudi royal family and the Saudi states. I think Dubai will carry on doing what it does, which is not much in terms of stabilizing the Middle East and basically sucking as much money out of the West as it possibly can, possibly to fund terrorism. I don't think Dubai is anything but a pile of crap in the desert, and I have no time for people that marvel at it. Enough said about Dubai. But the rest of the Arab world is disparate and potentially crumbling around it. We've done our best to destabilize parts of the Arab world that probably we saw fit needed to be destabilized in the upscaling of what was going to happen around now for those who could actually foresee this event happening. But I put it to you that Russia are going to be key players in the Middle East. Again, they always were and they always will be. And I think out of pure jealousy, they rivaled us when we invaded Afghanistan and Iraq. That aside, that probably was an irascible move, invading Iraq and Afghanistan, and certainly something that a lot of people from my school of thought believe had no need to happen at that juncture, and there's still no conclusive proof that they actually went after the right targets, and the reasons for going to that war and everything else were probably not as robust as they should be. However, what we're seeing now is it is probably a knock-on effect from what is now being upscaled by this whole Middle East Russian continuum. So maybe it was a good idea to get involved in the Middle East at some level, and therefore, retrospectively, I think that has to be put behind us as a bad argument to counter what we did then, because it resonates for what we're going to have to do in the future and be prepared to do, because desert warfare is definitely going to be a part of this, and we're going to have to fight in jungle and a lot of inhospitable terrains, I suspect. Other parts of the world to watch for. I think India are probably a fickle mistress, probably quite on the payroll of Russia, quite involved with Russian and at the same time Chinese infrastructure. So I don't know exactly where to go with India. I think we'll see 6 of one and half a dozen of the other, and prepare for a lot of treachery and backstabbing when you think you got the support of the people if you're serving or an active military agent in that location. Other parts of the world, I think we have to think about, certainly South America. I don't think there'll be a sleeping giant on this. I think they'll want to be involved one side or the other. And I think, providing countries like, remember the issues with Venezuela before, involved with Putin and his support of this government that got in power then, and the problems, the American government's viewpoint of that, and the problems it's caused between Russia and everything else. I think there are other countries. I don't know how Brazil will fare, but I think they'll come on side with us. That's what we hope. And all the westernized, the civilized countries of South America, I think should be safe. But again, if there is this Venezuelan-ish continuum with Russia, it should be rigorously checked as well. Certain rogue South American states, certainly with the leaders of the West, do not believe are the correct leaders. I think we should certainly look into finding any sources of nuclear armament that is geared towards frustrating or stopping our progress in our combat against Russia. Dividing, so the world generally, the rest of the world, Philippines, all those three countries in the Far East, basically under China's watch, which I think at the moment is safe. I don't know how that will be there forever, but I think at the moment, I think we've got to trust China a little bit more and believe in their security and their endeavour to become a human space force. Now, on the next level, so I talked a little bit about solutions at the beginning that we might be able to offer in terms of solving or providing infrastructure to start to create technology en masse in the war effort to combat this new threat. Basically, SAFCOMMS Limited, you may not know much about it, I haven't been in space myself. I don't get involved in satellites or get involved with any technology or putting ships in space yet. We do intend to. I make no doubt. I make no. I've never been quiet about my support of the space programs and the fact that we intend to get involved in setting up infrastructure, universal highways and byways of the universe, and everything else. For our view, the existing situation with technology in the space world is from our perspective, is too linked to the artisan technology that the so-called tech movement of the digital era that has been in process for the last 20 years or so is our viewpoint that the artisan technology that has gone into setting up certain institutions of the space world are a little bit archaic in the process of actually getting the bigger picture and moving into a wider field of a space program that can be implemented from all sides, so from America, Europe, Britain, and the rest of the world. So it's my primary view that the first process of putting these activities in space and getting SAFCOMMS to start to map out the universe in order to structure a planet-wide institution of IP ranges that can map the universe to defined locations in the universal order on this planet, which is, I think, the era we're now in. I think we are now in the universal order on this planet, and we are up against straight away the first signs of rivalry from Russia and the dangers that may show us from this despot, Vladimir Putin. Secondly, when we get involved with space programs and start to facilitate our processes to ensure that they are viable for a much larger remit, much wider remit of going, to far greater distances with much better technology, I think there are at least 3 or 4 key aspects that I need observed and that will have to be observed in order to get this next process underway. First one is the consumer restraints in these programs and networks. They must be force removed. They will be replaced with particle technology that will enable the system to operate in the same way and potentially at a much better level when we move into the next implementation of the plan. That is the first point of business that I have to put before you. So these, it won't mean actually people going around and physically removing consumer restraints. I'm talking about silicon implants, microchips, technology that is designed to constrain things and cause the breakthrough to happen. In our viewpoint, these constraints have been put there to cause the upshift in the human dimension and to get us into this ascension movement and move out of it into the space program. So I think the override and the force override will be quite a simple program once we get enough clout and enough servers built in our technology at the franchise that we put before NASA or other space programs in those areas. I also have had personal issues. Obviously, I think a lot of us have had issues to overcome regarding, the IoT reality where everything is cast iron arranged through this artisan network of microchipping people, technology, and other things. I think the process means that if you're trying to get forward in business and this sort of arrangement is already there before you, you have a massive task to overcome that in the first place if you are not going to do business with that side of things. I've come full circle and I've moved into the domain where I am slowly starting to move my system dual-sided into the marriage between, say, Android and iPhone, or Apple and Microsoft, whatever it may be. I believe these two systems need to be married up and to be on an even playing field. This is one thing we believe at SAFCOMMS. We created this technology called SAF Haven, where all technologies are on an even playing field with equal security, all set fit to offer the best solutions in security and implementing strategies to do what we have to do in order to move forward and prevent war with people who use these technologies, by the way, hackable, you name it. With those technologies, you're 100,000 times more vulnerable than you would be without them. And that's clear. Cyber hacks going on every day because of the network of dark technology in the microchip world. So that would be my first thought of what we have to do in order to upscale and move towards a much wider reaching, bigger spectrum of what the space program will be. Second issue is so SAFCOMMS Limited is not, like I said, I'm not involved in satellites or launching satellites yet, or anything space in the existing legal infrastructure. I intend to move into the legal organizational direction straight away, which if things comply and things work well in the process of setting up the next program, then I think I'll be able to back on getting piggyback on some of the existing space programs as we develop and change them into the new technology that we need to move forward. I'm not suggesting that we do that straight away. I'm just saying potentially, at least we've got something robust that can start the system off. And thanks to NASA, and again, many thanks for doing what you do and risking your lives and doing everything that you do to make the sustainable future of this planet viable. No, SAFCOMMS Limited is literally a ground program. It goes into the universe. It's connected to the universe. And I talk about the IPVXYZ setup that is exactly the process of implementing the next phase of mapping the universe, the Earth, and setting up the universal order on the planet so that we can have the domains and the realms that are needed in order to get a group attack, if you like, on getting off world and getting into this new phase of exploring the universe. But we are a ground-based system that literally, what SAFCOMM stands for is Spiritual Arc Web of Faith. That's how it started. So if you like arcs, curved arcs that can travel, through, dense areas, through the planet, if you like, and ultimately to other planets and set up these super byways and highways of the universe. Now, we use particle technology and a continual stream of particles that is launched from the SpaceTM program. Now, spacetm.uk is our website, which is literally the duality of the existing universe that we ourselves live in. I'm not talking about the multiverse that the whole cosmos is created from. I'm talking about our local universe here and the location of Gloucestershire, which is the duality. So we have the commodities of space TM, which I can facilitate the process of tapping into and using our system, which is now proving to work directly to me, not to other people connected to it who have reported back. I have literally, I'm seeing this now every day. We're getting some good phenomena in communications and technology. And I tell people when they ask me what my business is primarily about, it is primarily a communications business. And it is also very much involved in intelligence, gathering intelligence, and seeking to implement the best possible solutions against criminal negligence and the dangers that the world faces from a sort of imperial AI system. And I've got to talk about China here. And I think China are, again, the front runners for something that is a benign AI. I don't know how much of it is, but I think the Chinese government and the systems in place from China are, again, a benign AI. I think what we'll get from Russia is something much darker. I think that AI program is very secret. And I think we've been seeing a lot of it in London under this Google DeepMind system, which is basically, this brings me on to the third point regarding my parameters for operating with and for space programs, is that the third point is, what we're seeing with Western governments. I'm afraid there's since the digital era, hypocrisy has become a fault that is now complemented and regarded as a fillip, as a real kudos for people who are going out there to selfishly make their own thing their own way. Now, again, we're putting our differences aside. I'm not going to get bitchy about it and start talking about why we can't, have a slightly hypocritical nature in certain aspects. But I think you have to look at the fact that what we're signaling with this Paris Agreement, with the whole electrification of cars and the whole process of taking the loosh out of the system, the energy that is caused from burning fossil fuels. Now, just hear me out before you judge me on this. Okay, what we do want to look after the planet, yes. But I'm afraid politicians have got their greedy, sweaty little mitts on this whole climate change process that the good of this world, the great and the good of this world are implementing. NASA and other space programs, European Space Agency, everything else. I have no problem with that. But I'm afraid it's endemic of the system. Is actually showing us what is going on. It's hardwired into the system now that people leaving school who are moderately intelligent are all going one route, and they are all going for this net zero, carbon neutral reality these politicians have put in place to tax individuals for burning fossil fuels and possibly implement war, if what I'm hearing is correct, on the basis of saving the planet. Now, I think everyone who's moderately intelligent on this planet realizes the reason for global warming nowadays is not burning fossil fuels. It is the sun heating up. Okay, and I think we all know that. I think we've all seen the pictures from NASA. I think we've all seen the solar flares this year, why it's so hot. But we're still getting archaic specimens who are now redundant in anything relevant on this planet, like Prince Charles, banging the drum of net zero as soon as the sun comes out. Now, in my viewpoint, fine. We've heard this rhetoric for a long time. I remember in the 80s, I was at school and we were told about global warming and the holes in the ozone layer. I think it's conclusive among people who know that the holes in the ozone layer have actually closed up. So I don't think this is actually an issue that is anything to do with our climate or atmosphere. I do believe we are damaging our atmosphere, and I have, greatest hope for planet Earth that it can take a bit of fossil fuel burning in order to implement strategies to get to the next level of forcing through the crystal ceiling, getting into the system where we can break off all the shackles of the existing digital infrastructure and move into the legal organizational direction without taking our foot off the pedal, without suddenly saying, "Oh, we're launching too many we're launching too many rockets, or we're not implementing enough strategies to keep the streets clean from burning fuel." Progress starts to go on the back foot. Progressive governments, so-called, start to get in power and start to implement strategies that start putting us in a situation where we're boxed in at the point when we should be going right out there in a heliospheric reality. So no, I think this is not the time to start to worry about emissions and start to tax the reality. Primary reason is, you look at China. Okay, you look at China. Okay, what have you got in China? You've got a very prosperous and fast-moving system that is bringing all things as one in its own country and moving towards an extremely articulate and well-versed future in spacefaring and military and infrastructure in a moderately peaceful way. Okay, what we're seeing with China is the fact that they are burning a lot of fuel. China, be aware of that, but obviously we're all aware of that. But I think we're also aware of the fact, some of us, that Chinese are specializing in a very post-industrial technology that is top secret and unknown to a lot of people in a disused volcano in China. And I think we're aware of the fact that potentially the Chinese are well ahead in net zero, probably way beyond anyone in the West, because the cautious governments of the West have decided to tax burning fossil fuels and to hammer the public for continuing as we are before we actually all get the technology that we require. Now, do we want China to make this before us and to provide all our energy, or do we want to continue pumping out the gas, burning fossil fuels, not to an exaggerated level, but at the levels that we're at the moment, which I think is modest, actually, even in America. And I think compared to China is nothing. Now, if we can sustain that and then bring about a reality where, we move into the exotic properties of space technologies, believing in the fact that, for those who use my mobile data, they'll start to get some of the apps that we're setting up on this system and that are being set up from hosts within our domain of Space TM. Okay, because the exotic properties of space technology are going to be far-reachingly, blindingly better than anything to do with burning carbon or anything else. But if we move into this wind farming, solar-powered, electric car, everything, I have nothing against our great friend Elon Musk and everything he's doing with Tesla. I think he's done what he needed to with that, and he's proven it can work, and good on him. But I don't think everyone needs to copy that agenda. I don't think that needs to be our only agenda. And I think we can continue to burn fuel on this planet safely. That is beyond a shadow of a doubt, in my view. So if we can keep our foot on the pedal and keep this industrial level up, so that we move towards the next level of fruiting the exotic technologies of space and the universal commodities that we achieve farmed through the system that we're going to share all over the world to everyone at reasonable prices, not overpriced. Remember, I'm a land-based system. I can operate from the land without launching satellites that cost me a lot of money. Okay, so we can launch this reasonably priced all over the world, and we can move into the next phase of declustering the near-Earth orbit and the atmospheres that are complexing the realities and deflecting some of our technologies, possibly acting as a buffer to keep us under check. But I really think, when the shackles come off, we need to move to the next phase where we can just say, look, just let it go. Let's move into the universal directives that we've been in since Donald Trump got inaugurated. We've moved into the universal agenda. I think some of these Democrats are forgetting that. And finding it rather taxing on their mental well-being. So anyway, this next stage is something we have to embrace, and certainly SAFCOMMS Limited will be facilitating it. And as soon as we get to the level where everyone can have this cheap technology, industrial technology, or interface technology, or whatever it may be that we get from space commodities or space programs that we're involved with from the whole EAR continuum, then it'll be fine. We can stop burning fossil fuels. We can stop building wind farms. But I really think, what they're doing with wind farms is ridiculous. Solar power, I see the strength in it actually, because it's much more economical in terms of input output. I think you can get a lot more out of a solar farm than you can out of a wind farm. I think that's undeniable. But do not forget there are other things we can embrace and use, like in certain areas, marinas and areas around the world where it's not difficult. There's a large amount of storms and we get heavy winds in the winter. Do not forget the power of tidal power. That is using tidal power and current power, offshore current power. Creating using the wave power to create power as well, and all that sort of thing. I think those technologies need to be looked at as well. But really, the main bent, the main crux of the whole program should be moving into these universal technologies now, not in 10 years' time when everything's okay and everything's vetted. I think we need to move forward and get licenses to move forward into this exotic technology, because otherwise, what example is NASA setting to the rest of the world? What are we setting to the rest of the world? Anyway, those are my three viewpoints about what we have to do in order to move forward into the space age for the full potential, the full remit of what a massive exploration program from all allies on this planet could achieve. Right, now the final point was we're going to have to talk about how we're going to implement strategies against Putin. I think I told you SAFCOMMS Limited was an intelligence-based technology. Is communications, intelligence, logistics, and infrastructure. It's also law and order, and it also serves to protect those who are not high earners or capable of getting off and achieving their best right from the get-go. I think I've been through the whole immersion program. I think some people have been through the immersion program, didn't quite get fully immersed in the process, and have somehow kept ahead of the game. We're not the sort of people to encrypt our systems to the level that only certain people can understand them. And one of our remits at the Academy of Creation and Warfare that we're going to set up is designed to teach people how we work in new tech. I've started something up which I call new tech. Now, we offer algorithmic solutions that, if understood and explained and worked through on an integral level, can result in the actual actioning of a messiahing, if you like, of a system, a multi-channel reality that can actually result in something that is infinitely more fluffed up than the reality of deciding exactly how to define media networks and digital setups, all that sort of thing. Irrespective of that may leave you a little bit baffled, and I can't really explain too much about that yet. But every individual who I intend, with a group of people who sort of understand what I'm doing in my local community, I intend to teach individuals how to implement these new tech strategies in order to implement whatever it may be. We will have the scope to snuff out nuclear threat. We will have the scope to implement universal strategies from the get-go, and we will have the capabilities of helping people to develop their own businesses. We want everyone who gets involved with us to have their own seed of thought at the origin from the monolith conversion that we expect all our students to have gone through. Now, it doesn't matter what level you top out at, you will end up with a business. That's the idea in the Sierra movement. Sierra.uk, SAERA.uk is our academy program. Now, currently it's in a virtual state, and I'm moving towards setting up a lot of lessons and implementing some strategies to show people how to set up on this new tech algorithmic um, version of events that implements strategies to enhance graphical user interface and potentially cyber dimensional escalated creation of platforms or infrastructure, machines, landscapes, whatever it may be in the process. But in the here and now, I think we're looking at getting behind the senior project of myself, which is umosras.uk, umosras.uk. That is the like the exemplary version of what is going on in our locality, and how I'm trying to show people how they can implement cyber dimensional escalated creation to set up a safe haven in areas, primarily countryside areas for first levels of universal infrastructure. We're trying to map out a commonwealth whereby that if people top out at full seniority and have their business set up, then their business should structure in their own way, in their own language, because everyone we've been taught this new tech is open to interpretations, to writing your own version of events, as long as it is sequential and rhythmic to what you have implemented yourself, i.e., original to yourself, and structured on a basis that follows the argument through and pans out at an event at the end, or a reality that can actually be traced as something that is derived or physically right there in front of you, has been structured by what you processed through the 10, 20-year training program that you've been through. Now, this alone for intelligence services is going to be extremely useful. Polymorphic, to quote the Bond villain in Spectre, or whatever it was, no, the one before, Skyfall. Polymorphic of how the system works. So what it does is it maps onto a local system. It uses the particle technology of the mother service or the parent service of SAFCOMMS to map onto technology and to structure a tried and tested method of life solutions rather than the artisanal side, which obviously focuses very much around short knowledge, which we don't imply and we don't wish people to use in our technology. But these things all get ironed out as they go through the student process into seniority. But these implications are also with life solutions that people think, should we have a war against Putin? Can we implement death strategies, all this sort of thing? I think there's a means to an end with the existing digital infrastructure. And I think when that dies out and we lose the implication of death in setting up networks to get knowledge, then I think the final reality will be that, once we have exhausted all the sting that we can muster, then war will be over and there will be peace anyway. And that's basically how I'm going to leave it, because I think, with a robust communication system that lets certain advocated and tried justices through the system, that SAFCOMMS Limited can implement these strategies to enable the survival of our planet, destruction of nuclear threat, and also a peaceful solution to how we endeavour and intend to take on our spacefaring reality. So I wish you all good night, and God bless you all, and keep up the good work from all sides, because this is coming online, and my department will be at large and very much at the forefront of watching what happens over the next few months with this despot in Russia. So let's hope we can all sleep easy and we are not, anywhere near losing everything that we love and hold dear. God bless you all. Good night.